Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about use of oxygen in the wastewater. It looks little, sometimes you may think it's so expensive, why should we use an oxygen? But there are so many advantages and application which at times becomes very handy. So I'm going to just discuss very briefly the methodology. Can we have the next slide, please? The company's name is PCI Gases, Pacific Consolidated Industries. Their headquarters is in California, and we have manufacturing centers at Bangalore and Brazil and, of course, California. And from there, we are supplying these machines all over the world. Next. These are the various generators. They are deployable. You can just shift it anywhere you like, and you have to just connect to the electrical power to resume the operation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Well, I'm not going to go into detail of the conventional processes of activated sludge, but what we are trying to do is to use or replace some of the aeration device with pure oxygen. And wherever the benefits are, I'm going to describe the benefits if you use oxygen. Next. Next slide, please. This is also membrane bioreactors. We see increasing use of oxygen intensification with air to support the high biomass which is required to destroy maximum amount of BOD and COD in one reactor. Next slide, please. And this is what I want to tell you, that the oxygen, pure oxygen doesn't have any nitrogen, but with air you have 80% nitrogen and 20% oxygen. So if you put oxygen into a water, plain water, you will see the dissolved oxygen level can get saturated at 35 ppm. Where the same beaker with water, if you put air, it will get saturated at 7 ppm. And these are the driving forces which allows you to keep more biomass in the tank or reduce the aeration tank capacity by 50% or take higher or throughput increase of the effluent flow from 60 to 100% even. So these are some of the benefits, but due to these properties, there are some advantage incurred. And I'm going to tell you how we dissolve the oxygen into the wastewater. Next slide, please. And some of the advantages I've been trying to say is the capacity or augmentation. If you have a sewage plant and you have 10 MLD, with clarifier permitting, we can go up to 20 MLD without any capital investment using just the oxygen generator and some piping, which I will describe. The odor is an issue. Odor is due to hydrogen sulfide generation, and this can be totally oxidized with oxygen, resulting into a total odor-free environment. And also H2S generates corrosivity, and which can destroy some of the aeration equipment subsequently. That can be also avoided. And of course, there will be some power savings. You incurring a lot of power due to transferring air, which has 80% nitrogen. When you replace it with pure oxygen, obviously the power requirement comes down. Now, how to design this aeration and oxygen is something which needs to be discussed in detail, depending on the parameters. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, when you compare air and oxygen, on the left side it's air and on the right side on the oxygen, but all it is ultimately ending up that high DO. If you have high DO, dissolved oxygen level in oxygen tank, your shock loads can be treated, which normal aerator is treating, say, X amount. But if X plus 2 amount comes, the oxygen can treat easily with the presence of slightly higher biomass, resulting into reliable outlet discharge. Uh, and also, the requirement is also that it will reduce the COD, ammonia, BOD, sulfide, all these parameters can be conveniently removed. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I was telling you, this is an installation equalization tank where those are the sparger, which I will show you how it works. So combination of air and oxygen in biological tank provides the flexibility of reduced capital, land, and recurring cost. It also provides the flexibility for operating the ETP in case of failure of one of the system. Compared to conventional system, there is a possibility of saving chemicals and reduction of RO reject, which could cut down the operating cost of the ETP. PCI would be able to provide the design of such combination of air and oxygen so that the process is economically viable and effective. These days, I interact with some of the sewage board, and they says the BOD has to come down from 20 to 10 in the same tank. Do we go for another aeration tank? So there is a distinct possibility that by oxygen intensification along with the aeration device can bring down this BOD from 20 to 10, and some TSS reduction will obviously happen as you are reducing your COD and BOD. So these are some of the advantages, and of course reject in the southern part of India. Most of the plants are zero discharge plant, and they have a huge expenditure on the rejects. So if you can, and most of them have a COD outlet of say 600 to 700, 500. If you can bring down to a level of 100, definitely the RO membrane performance will improve, and your reject will also come down from multiple effect evaporator. This is what I think there are some added advantage which has to be tried. Next slide, please. And this is how it works. You have maybe next slide, please. I will show a video. It will be clear. Can you start the video on the left-hand side, please? Not one. This other video. So this is supposing this is a tank, and you have the nozzles inside, and there is a submersible pump which is drawing the biomass from the tank, and there will be an injector or venturi where there will be velocity drop at the throat where oxygen will be sucked, and oxygen start mixing with the biomass, and final phase of dissolution happens at the throat of the venturi. Venturi gives a good mixing energy, thrusting motion, and entire tank is well mixed and DO is going up. So this is what we meant of oxygen dissolution in the tank. Normal oxygen, if you diffuse, nothing will happen. Here we can get around 85 to 90% oxygen transfer. So that's how we are trying to justify oxygen dissolution economically. The right-hand side, there's a video of how the nozzles work. Can you start the right-hand video? Those are the mist. Mist is nothing but oxygen, fine bubbles, few millimeter. And then it gathers the velocity and it goes up to the next end of the tank. Next slide, please. Next. This is we have implemented in a sewage treatment plant at Bangalore. This is a small sewage treatment plant near Uttarhali Lake, where they treat the sewage before discharging into the lake. So here, what we have done is we have replaced their some 30 kilowatt blower with our system. We have a submersible pump and 2 sets of venturi, and the oxygen is connected to the venturi, and that's how it works. And we could treat, they were treating around 400 to 500 meter cube per day of sewage. Now we have taken it to almost 900 to 1000 cubic meter with the same discharge velocity. And so they had extra sewage that they were treating with this modification. Can we have the video, please? Same slide, you have a video. So this is how the oxygen bubbles looks like on the surface of the tank. And the MLSS comes up and good mixing. And fortunately, the clarifier was good enough to treat additional flow. Otherwise, that would be a limitation. Next video, please. That is the generators we have. We call it VSA generator. It's not a PSA, it's a VSA. It saves 50% lesser power than the PSA. And it's a newer version of technology from US, which we are using here. We have about 300 installation in hospitals all over the India. Also some industrial effluent treatment installations. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the result of that sewage treatment plant augmentation I was talking. 300 to 400 cubic meter with air. We have taken it to 900 to 1000 with the same inlet and discharge COD BOD. So what was the advantage is that the customer was planning to go for one more STP of 0.5 MLD, spending maybe 2.5 crores rupees. And with our oxygen system, nothing they had to invest, only they had to invest on oxygen plant and few pipes, PVC pipe and some Venturi and injector, which is, so almost 1.2 crores they saved with this. So they have given us one more order. We are putting it to one more lake. Same, a lake only.
Is it a blended system, air plus oxygen?
No,
You
replace the load. It's 100% oxygen. It's 100% oxygen.
Capital cost, but what about the running and maintenance cost?
We have, they had 30 kilowatt blower, which we have removed. And our oxygen plant was, I think it was 17 kilowatt, and the pump was 150 cubic meter, which was taking about 15 kilowatt. So almost same, 32 kilometer, but we double the capacity with almost the same power.
So with the same running cost and the
Yes,
capital
yes,
cost,
yes. That's what it is. Of course, maintenance cost is there afterwards. It's a movable part, so you have to have some recurring cost afterwards.
What is about the scaling up? Is it possible to use this system as a replacement to blower and air systems?
Of course.
Municipal STPs also, the large
The big
scale
one. See, all depends on the economics. You can use 60% air or 50% air, 50% oxygen. Because at the end of the day, I'm increasing my DO. So that depends on the economy. That my oxygen.
Looks a very interesting case.
Yeah.
Take your card
Sorry.
and then I'll discuss this.
Yeah. Okay. Next. This is the lake of Uttarali, Bangalore, and that is the machines, our generator machine. So it doesn't require much space, 5 meter by 5 meter, and some cover. Yeah. So that's all. You connect into the Venturi, and that's it. And you don't have to stop any ETP. Next.
And the technology uses plasma arc inside with oxygen in it.
No, we have an understanding with an US company. They provides. Next slide, please. Okay. Now this lake, we have been also talking. Most of the Bangalore has about 120 or maybe 150 lakes currently, and a lot of lakes still the sewage is coming from many sides. It's difficult to control. So I was suggesting if we can have oxygen at the conjunction where the sewage is coming to the lake, at least that portion the DO will go up and gradually natural mixing with the lake. As a result, these phosphorus, untreated sewage, COD, BOD, phosphorus, ammonia, etc. is giving rise to all these planktons. And that sometimes becomes anaerobic and generate methane, and sometimes they said there is a fire in the lake. It is nothing but that methane gets burned by somebody throws some cigarette butts or something, and it catches fire. And so the lake catches fire. How it is? Because of some portion, there is some anaerobicity. So this can be, we are discussing with Bangalore Development Authority. Let us see. Next slide, please. This is next slide. This is another important application is the sulfide or the odor removal. This is installation of a CETP tannery where there is a tremendous smell of hydrogen sulfide. So what I did, in the equalization tank, I put oxygen. I elevated the pH to about 8.5 and DO of 5 ppm. And we got 90% sulfide removal, no smell. Otherwise, this is very difficult to control. Smells come from proteins. You know, the tannery, they use a lot of chemicals, sodium sulfide, potassium sulfide. They become anaerobic and then they generate hydrogen sulfide. So this is very handy. So we have, this is going on for last 3 years. Next slide, please. Next slide. Acha, there's a video. Okay, just carry on. Carry on. There's a right side, there's a video. This is that injector through which oxygen is injected. And on the right hand side, the equalization tank. Here, there is another requirement of 40 watt per meter cube mixing energy. Otherwise, the reaction won't happen. If you give lower than that, so we had to install slightly bigger pump, but it worked. With air, it will never be able to go up to 2 ppm. So that's why most of the tanneries, equalization tank or pre-aeration tank, people suffer because of low DO. Next slide, please. This is the same installation I was talking. There's a big 180 cubic meter plant because their size is very big, effluent is very big. So we had to we can size any size of oxygen depending on the process. Next slide. This is another interesting application. You know, rising main from sewage, it travels to the equalization tank or even aeration tank. So you generate hydrogen sulfide due to anaerobicity. So here, if you can inject some oxygen through the same pump and venturi, small, we have information that even travel 0.5 to 1 kilometer, almost 50% BOD gets destroyed with very small amount of oxygen, and also sulfide is destroyed before it goes to the equalization tank. So this US, this is the maximum application what the company has done, this kind of pipeline oxidation, because they have got huge pipes, long pipes. So this is very handy. I mean, it's not very expensive. Next. This is that particular VSA technology, my last slide. Actually, on the left-hand side, you will see a chamber. And there is a blower. Instead of blower, we have instead of a compressor, we have just a blower. So it withdraws the air from the atmosphere through heat exchanger. It goes to the chamber where you have molecular sieve, and oxygen is generated, and nitrogen is absorbed, and oxygen is driven up to the two tanks. And this blower, after 15 seconds, it reverses the direction and creates vacuum in the tank, and then entire nitrogen is driven up from the tank. So all you have got is oxygen, and through some valves, very limited number of valves, and a small oxygen compressor, you can use it into the customer. And these blowers are oil-free and low pressure, so there is no damage to the molecular sieve. With proper maintenance, the life can be of 10 years. So we see a good, of course, and the power requirement due to this reversible thing is almost 50% cheaper. So that is how the company is, and I'm trying to say because it is cheaper than the liquid oxygen. So if there are some cases like what I told you, reduction of fine-tuning of BOD or odor or capacity augmentation, this becomes very handy application. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for your listening.